I'm Representative Jennifer Longden from Legislative District 24, Arizona. We're glad to be here with you today. And today I have our three freshman legislators in the Democratic caucus. Now, the strength of our caucus is our diversity. And we have these great women who are just starting their third week of their legislative career. And I want to introduce them to you. So let's get started. Representative Stahl Hamilton, representing District 10. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's good to be here.
And tell us a little bit about your background before you came into legislative life.
Yeah, this is certainly not a journey I thought I would ever take, but I'm the wife of a public school teacher, the mom of 3 children. I'm an ordained minister in the Presbyterian Church, and spent a lot of time working with youth and children and teenagers.
Awesome. And Representative Hernandez, tell us a little bit about your background.
So I love talking about where my story began, and that was with my father, who immigrated here from Mexico. He became very politically involved once he immigrated here and fighting police brutality and fighting for immigration reform. And so I joined him since I was very young at those protests. And I just continue to fight against those injustices as I got older. I became a union shop steward, fighting for workers and their families. And most recently, I began working as a paramedic in my community. And that, to me, being on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic has really continued to motivate me to fight against these injustices. And eventually I ran for office, and here I am.
Excellent. Representative Schwiebert, you represent the district that I originally came from when I moved here to Arizona, Legislative District 20. So tell us what life looked like for you before you ran for office.
Well, thank you so much, Rep. Longden. I'm honored to really be here. You know, I grew up here in Phoenix. My dad was a shop teacher and my mom was a writer. And I wound up becoming a teacher myself in the Northwest Valley. And my husband and I had 2 boys who are now grown. I was a soccer mom and a volunteer and a Little League mom and co-founder of TheaterWorks. I, like Ms. Stahl Hamilton, never imagined that I would be running for office. But after I retired from 27 years of teaching at schools that are in my legislative district, I started to volunteer and learned that we had such a critical shortage of teachers in Arizona that we had 1,800 children without a permanent qualified teacher. And that made me decide that somebody should do something about that, and that somebody wound up being me. So I ran for office, and here I am.
Wonderful. Representative Stahl Hamilton, Representative Schwiebert just told us about that moment that she decided that she would run for office. Was there some seminal moment, some crystallizing factor that caused you to decide, this is it, I'm running?
That's a really great question. Mine was a really slow roll. It built over time, and it started by becoming involved in my children's school, very, very local. I served on site council, and certainly my first trip to the legislature to come up for a day of advocacy for education, I think was probably, if there was a crystallizing moment, it was that trip up that I think planted the seed that, oh, actually, this is where I need to be. I spent probably 5 years after that first trip really digging in and doing a lot of advocacy work. And each new thing that I tackled or took on continued to build upon that first trip to the legislature.
Representative Hernandez, can you tell us your story?
Absolutely. So for me, the primary reason that I decided to run for office was because of my work as a paramedic. For about 5-6 years now, I've been responding firsthand to the aftermath of gun violence, to the opioid crisis, to people rationing their medications because they cannot afford both medications and their food. And for me, seeing those images again and again in my mind, I realized that I had no other option but to run for office. I wanted to be able to stand up and be a voice, not only for people like myself, people like my dad, but for those individuals who maybe do not have a voice anymore because they were put in these horrible situations where they could not continue on for whatever reason. So that for me was why I decided to run for office.
And Rep. Hernandez, so often when we take our lived experience to the floor and use it during our committee of the whole or explaining votes and in committee as well, that's very riveting testimony when we can give it from that firsthand perspective. Now, you recently spoke about your experience as a paramedic responding to COVID-19 cases. Could you share with us just a little bit of what you see on your 911 calls related to COVID?
I see a lot of families being torn apart. I see a lot of death, an unheard amount of death. Just recently in a 48-hour shift, in less than 12 hours, we responded to 3 individuals who unfortunately passed. And I see a lot of neglect by some of our leadership individuals who have decided to act like this pandemic is not serious. And for me, I see a lot of reasons to continue coming into the Capitol day after day to continue fighting for those individuals.
Thank you for that. You're certainly a warrior. I've been following you on social media. And again, that lived experience, bringing our firsthand knowledge into this building is so critical. And each one of you brings an important perspective. So I want to go and ask Representative Schwiebert, what is it you're hoping to get accomplished in this first term, this first year of your first term?
My main focus is on education. And I want to make sure that our schools have the resources that they need to not only address this COVID crisis, which is so critical, but also to make sure that they are safe and have the resources that they need to go forward and help educate our kids.
And Representative Stahl-Hamilton, is there a particular piece of legislation or issue that you are really motivated to move? I know there's so much of it, but if you have to pick one, what is that one that you're really eager to move?
I ran on a platform of supporting education and working on healthcare, and was promptly placed on the Natural Resources, Energy and Water Committee and Government and Elections. And what I'm discovering in our NRU committee, the Natural Resources, Energy and Water, is that I've got a passion for that in our state. I came in thinking I would dig in and work on policy in one area, and I'm realizing that there's so much more to pour myself into, and I'm finding that rather exciting. So right now, a lot of my energy and focus has been going to our NRU committee. I do have 2 bills related to healthcare, and one is through access and the recertification process. And then the other, which brings together my passion and work with children and eliminating the waiting period for families who qualify to get their children on kids care, eliminating that waiting period. And the moment they qualify, they can immediately be enrolled and receive their benefits.
So Stephanie, we campaign in that first campaign from an idealistic point of view, and then you get down here. So tell me, what's been the biggest surprise for you now that you're here?
The biggest surprise, well, it's as everybody told me. And in that first campaign, people look at you and you're excited and you're ready to do this. And people say, why in the heck do you want to do this? I had one person say, what got into you? And so in that sense, I think my colleagues prepared me well. The biggest surprise is I felt like it would be a much more dynamic process. And I think minds are already made up when we go into committee as we deal with these bills. And I thought it would be more dynamic and that my mind could be shifted in committee with testimony. And that's the piece that I'm realizing that most of the work, I think, happens before you even come into the committee. So if there's a bill that needs to be passed, it needs to start 18 months before it actually makes it to the Capitol. The groundwork needs to happen long before. And I think that for me is the biggest surprise.
Awesome. And how about you, Representative Hernandez? Have you had a surprise in what you thought it was going to be and what it is now that you're here?
Thank you. So for me, I had two really big surprises. One was the amount of kindness that I have received from my colleagues, such as yourself, Representative Longden. And for me, just being in such a welcoming environment, one that wants you to succeed, one that wants you to see you accomplish the goals that you have for yourself and your constituents, that to me is incredibly empowering. I was very nervous about coming here. My seatmate, Representative Salmon, can tell you that I give her a lot of nervous phone calls like, oh my God, like, I can't believe it's happening. And so to just come in and to know that there's more than just her, you know, more familiar faces that I can reach out to, I absolutely love that. And one thing that was shocking to me is honestly, when it comes to our Republican colleagues, just the utter disregard for human life. And for me, some of the bills, some of the legislation that they're already trying to push, such as that horrible HB 2650 abortion bill, just wanting to go to the floor, but knowing that almost every single Republican is still refusing to wear a mask, that to me, it's strange. It's a strange balance. There's a lot of kindness, and then there's a lot of almost hostility on their end, on how aggressive they're being with, like I said, their utter disregard for life. So that's kind of what I'm taking away from it at this moment.
And Rep. Hernandez, what one issue or one bill is the one that you're going to throw it all in behind?
Thank you. So the one bill that I have ready to go right now is the Frontline Workers Bill of Rights. I'm incredibly excited about this one. It's going to be addressing childcare, hazard pay, and whistleblower protections, and some other things. And this is just to protect primarily our healthcare workers who have been on the front lines of this COVID-19 pandemic since day one. And so, you know, being one of those healthcare workers myself and knowing what we've been through, I'm really excited to be supporting individuals in this manner, as well as their families, so that they don't have to worry as much as they have been. And I have one more bill that I'm working on. I can't talk about it too much yet because I'm still working out the kinks, but that one's also going to be one that I'm going to go very, very hard on.
Excellent. All right. Well, I want to thank you all. We have an amazing freshman class, and I know that each one of you is bringing your world experience, your lived experience, and your worldview into the House and onto the floor. You're doing an amazing job representing the people of your district, and we are so fortunate to have you here joining us. So I'd like to thank today Representative Judy Schwiebert, Representative Stephanie Stahl-Hamilton, and Representative Melody Hernandez. Arizona, thank you for being with us today, and we'll be back again soon. I'm Representative Jennifer Longden. Thanks again.